The lost legacy of Indian Islam. How our scholars, sultans, and Sufis shaped the faith. In the dusty streets of Delhi, in the quiet courtyards of Ajmer, and in the echoing mosques of Agra, there still lingers a fragrance of faith, knowledge, and devotion that once transformed an entire civilization. This is not the story of conquest. This is not the story of empire. This is the story of hearts won through love, wisdom, and deen. Before the armies came the call to Allah. Before the palaces came the khanqahs, the humble lodges of the Sufis. Men who carried no swords, yet conquered millions of souls. Men like Khwaja Moinuddin Chishti, Nizamuddin Auliya, Shah Waliullah, and Hazrat Ahmad Raza Khan. Names that once lit up the skies of the Indian subcontinent with faith and knowledge. But today, their legacy is fading. The world remembers the Mughals, but forgets the mujahids of knowledge who carried the Quran in one hand and compassion in the other. We remember their monuments, but not the message behind them. So today, my brothers and sisters, wisdom from the Minbar takes you on a journey into the forgotten soul of India. A journey through centuries of Islamic brilliance, spiritual power, and intellectual might. How a land of idols became a beacon of Tawheed. How faith conquered hearts long before swords were drawn. Because history isn't just what we read, it's what we remember. And if we forget our past, we lose our direction. So stay with me till the end. Because by the time we finish, you will not only rediscover the legacy of Indian Islam, you will feel it inside your soul. And before we begin, if you are new here, hit that subscribe button, join our growing wisdom from the Minbar family, and let's revive the forgotten stories of Islam together. Bismillah, let the journey begin. When the light first reached Hind, the dawn of Islam in India. Every great story has a beginning, and the story of Islam in India began not with armies, but with waves. Long before the Mughal thrones or the Delhi Sultanate, long before the domes of marble and minarets pierced the skies, a humble tide carried the words La ilaha illa Allah to the shores of Hind. It was the 7th century. The companions of the Prophet were alive, their hearts burning with the flame of revelation. And just across the Arabian Sea, in the busy ports of Kerala, Gujarat, and Sindh, Arab traders anchored their ships, carrying not just spices but faith. They came with honesty, they traded with integrity, they lived with humility. Their character was their dawah, and through them, the message of Islam quietly entered the Indian heart, not through force, but through example. It is said that one of the earliest kings to accept Islam was Sharaman Perumal of Kerala. He heard the message of the Prophet, felt its truth pierce his heart, and traveled to meet him in person. Though history left few traces, the people of Malabar still remember. Their first mosque, Masjid Sharaman Juma, still stands, a silent witness to how faith crossed the seas, long before any army set foot on Indian soil. From the Malabar coast, Islam spread inland, through merchants, scholars, travelers, and mystics. It did not arrive shouting, "Convert!" It whispered, "Understand." And the people of India, seekers of wisdom, lovers of poetry, and worshippers of many gods, were captivated by this new revelation that spoke of one God, one creation, one purpose. The Quran said, "We have not sent you, O Muhammad, except as a mercy to all the worlds." Quran 21:107. And mercy is what reached India first. Islam came as a guest, and India welcomed it. Over time, that guest became family. The traders became teachers. The mosques became centers of light. The faith took root, not in palaces but in hearts. My brothers and sisters, before we talk about the great sultans and the powerful dynasties, we must remember the quiet beginning. The first Muslims of India were not conquerors. They were ambassadors of character. They lived by the Sunnah, spoke truth even in business, showed mercy even to those who mocked them. And that sincerity changed everything. It was through akhlaq, not arms, that Islam first flourished. Through trust, not terror. Through truth, not tricks. And this is a message for us today, in an age when we debate, argue, and shout about Islam online. The first Dawah in India did not come from speeches. It came from hearts that reflected the Prophet's character. People didn't accept Islam because Muslims were powerful. They accepted Islam because Muslims were beautiful in conduct. Imagine this scene. Arab merchants in white garments, praying far by the sea, as Indian villagers watch silently from the distance. They see men bowing in perfect rows, whispering words of peace. No idols, no drums, no images, only surrender to the unseen Lord of the heavens and the earth. That moment planted a seed, and from that seed, a civilization grew. So, when we speak about the lost legacy of Indian Islam, we begin here, at the shoreline of sincerity. Because this was not just a meeting of cultures, it was a meeting of hearts and faith. And as we journey through this series, we'll see how that seed of sincerity grew into a mighty tree. The scholars who built the roots, the sultans who guarded the branches, and the Sufis who made its fruits sweet for generations. But never forget, the first gardener was the humble Muslim merchant, the one who sold spices but traded in truth. So as we end this chapter, remember, if Islam could spread to an entire subcontinent through character, what could your character do for Islam today? The sultans who served the deen, power with purpose. When Islam took root in India, it wasn't long before faith turned into foundation, and foundation into civilization. From the dusty ports of Sind to the mighty cities of Delhi, Allah raised men who didn't just wear crowns, they carried responsibility. The story of Indian Islam cannot be told without the sultans, those who turned belief into governance and built societies around the Quran. But not all kings were the same. Some ruled for ego, others ruled for Allah. And today, wisdom from the Minbar remembers those who ruled with purpose, sultans who saw their thrones as a trust, not a trophy. The first among them was Muhammad bin Qasim, the young general who entered Sind at only 17. He wasn't there for gold or glory. He was there to protect Muslim traders who had been wronged. And when victory came, he didn't burn temples or crush cities. He established justice. He respected the Hindus, the Buddhists, and the Christians, granting them freedom of worship, protection, and dignity. The people saw something new, a conqueror who didn't plunder, a ruler who prayed. This was the first taste of Islamic governance in Hind, and it planted something deeper than fear. It planted faith in fairness. Centuries later, as the Delhi Sultanate rose, the message of Islam spread with even greater force. But again, not through the sword, through systems, schools, and service. From Qutb-ud-Aibak to Iltutmish, from Balban to Alauddin Khalji, and finally to Firoz Shah Tughlaq, each brought a new layer to the architecture of Islamic civilization in India. They built masajid that called hearts to prayer, madrasas that trained generations of scholars, hospitals that healed the poor, and caravanserais that sheltered travelers. In a time of tribal kings, these Muslim rulers established something radical, a state guided by Sharia and justice. But the real beauty wasn't in their buildings, it was in their vision. They believed power meant nothing unless it served Allah's cause. Alauddin Khalji once said, "A ruler's wealth is the trust of the poor. If he betrays it, Allah will make him poor in the hereafter." Imagine that, a king of millions fearing the fire of Jahannam more than rebellion. That fear of Allah built a civilization that others admired. Under their leadership, scholars came from Persia, Turkestan, and Arabia, finding in India a place where knowledge was honored and the Quran was law. But my brothers and sisters, every golden age is tested. Not every ruler who bore the title of sultan lived up to it. Some fell into pride. Some forgot the deen. And every time they did, Allah replaced them. Because Allah does not bless thrones, He blesses taqwa. The Quran says, if you turn away, He will replace you with another people, and they will not be like you. Quran 47:38. That verse became reality time and time again in Indian history. When a ruler used power for ego, Allah removed him. When a ruler used power for deen, Allah raised him higher. This is a lesson for our generation too. Today, power no longer sits on thrones. It sits in our hands and screens. Our influence, our platforms, our voices, they're our thrones. The question is, are we using them for Allah or for ourselves? Those sultans built masajid. We can build awareness. They built madrasas. We can build understanding. They guarded the faith with swords. We can guard it with truth. The sultans of the past had armies. The Muslims of today have algorithms. Yet the same rule applies. Power is a test. So, as we admire the monuments they built, let us not forget the principles they lived by. Justice, humility, and service to Allah's creation. Because in the end, a just ruler and a sincere believer are brothers. Both build legacies that outlive them. And that legacy, my brothers and sisters, didn't stop at kings. When palaces fell, the Sufis rose. When the throne weakened, the hearts strengthened. And in the next chapter, we'll enter the khanqahs, the spiritual homes of India's greatest saints, where Daika replaced politics and love for Allah replaced love for power. The saints and the seekers, when love became the language of dua. Every age has its warriors, but not all warriors fight with swords. Some fight with love, some with patience, and some with the remembrance of Allah. When kings built their palaces and scholars filled their libraries, there arose a different kind of army in India, the army of the Aliyah, the friends of Allah. They didn't wear crowns or hold titles. They lived among the people, ate little, spoke softly, and guided hearts through sincerity. While the sultans protected the body of Islam, the Sufis protected its soul. Among them was a man whose name became light across centuries. Khwaja Moinuddin Chishti, Rahimahullah, of Ajmer. Born in Persia, raised in the spirit of piety, he arrived in India with nothing but his tasbih, his Quran, and his love for Allah. He made his home in Ajmer, not a palace, but a place of peace. And through his simplicity, his mercy, and his prayers, thousands found Islam. He never forced anyone to convert. He simply lived the message. His khanqah, spiritual lodge, became a refuge for the broken, the hungry, the orphan, and the seeker. Rich or poor, Hindu or Muslim, all were welcome, because his door reflected the door of Islam itself. The gate of mercy is always open. One of his famous sayings still shakes the heart. The highest form of devotion is to relieve the pain of others. Subhanallah, what a message! At a time when many sought to debate, Khwaja Moinuddin chose to heal. And that healing spread faster than any army ever could. After him came Nizamuddin Auliya, the beloved saint of Delhi. He was called Mehboob Ilahi, the beloved of Allah. His gatherings were filled with dhikr, knowledge, and compassion. Kings feared his honesty. The poor found peace in his presence. Once, when a powerful sultan sent gold to him as a gift, Nizamuddin smiled and said, "Tell the king, if he loves the poor, let him bring bread, not gold." He wasn't impressed by thrones or treasures. His treasure was contentment with Allah. And then there was Hazrat Baba Farid of Pakpatan, the saint of simplicity. He fasted more than he ate, forgave more than he complained, and loved more than he was loved. His words were short, but his meanings were oceans. He once said, "If you wish to see Allah, then serve his creation, because Allah hides behind the tears of the needy." These men transformed India, not by ruling it, but by purifying it. They gave the people something they had never seen before, Islam with a heart, an Islam that smiled, an Islam that served, an Islam that united, not divided. My dear brothers and sisters, this is the forgotten secret of Indian Islam. It was never just a religion of laws. It was a revolution of love. While others fought for land, these saints fought for souls. They brought Hindus, Buddhists, and even atheists closer to Allah, not through fear, but through compassion. Their khanqahs became schools, soup kitchens, hospitals, and homes. And even today, hundreds of years later, people, Muslims and non-Muslims alike, still visit their resting places. Why? Because sincerity never dies. Allah says in the Quran, "Indeed, the friends of Allah, there will be no fear upon them, nor will they grieve." Quran 10 hours, 62 minutes. These awliya were not just men of miracles, they were men of manners. Their greatest miracle was their character. And today, in our time, where people fight over madhabs, tribes, and politics, we need that same light of mercy again. Because Islam doesn't need more debates. It needs more hearts like Khwaja Moinuddin's, more humility like Nizamuddin's, and more patience like Baba Farid's. Let the world see Islam through our akhlaq, not just our arguments. Let our homes become khanqahs, places where people find peace, not judgment. Because when love becomes our language, dua becomes effortless. In the next chapter, we will journey from the spiritual to the scholarly, to meet the ulama who built the intellectual backbone of Indian Islam. The thinkers, the writers, the muhaddithin, and mufassirin. Those who kept the Quran and Sunnah alive when empires began to fade. Stay with me, as wisdom from the Minbar uncovers the next layer of this glorious legacy. The scholars who preserve the light, knowledge against decline. Every civilization has its warriors, but the greatest among them are not those who hold swords. They're those who hold pens. When the palaces of Delhi began to fade and the golden age of Sufism started to wane, Allah raised a new army. An army of scholars, teachers, and writers who fought ignorance with knowledge and despair with deen. This was the age of the ulama of Hind, the protectors of Islam in India. At the heart of this movement stood one name that shines brighter than most. Shah Waliullah Dehlavi, rahimahullah. Born in the 18th century, when India was crumbling politically and morally, he became the light that guided a nation back to Allah. He revived the teachings of Quran and Sunnah at a time when innovations and divisions were tearing the Ummah apart. He translated the Quran into Persian, not to change it, but to make it understood by the common people. He traveled to Mecca and Medina, learned from the greatest scholars, and returned not as a reformer seeking fame, but as a reviver seeking forgiveness. His mission was simple: bring Muslims back to the Book of Allah and the Sunnah of the Prophet. He warned against blind following, arrogance in scholarship, and pride in knowledge without action. He taught that unity is built on understanding, not just emotion. Shah Waliullah was not alone. He inspired generations. His sons carried his torch. His students spread his message. And his ideas became the backbone of countless movements that would follow. In the madrasas of Lucknow, Bareilly, and Deoband, a new generation rose. Men who gave their lives to study, to teach, to write. They had no wealth, no armies, no media, but they had Allah, ink, and sincerity. Maulana Rashid Ahmad Gangohi, Maulana Qasim Nanatwi, Ahmad Raza Khan Barelwi, Shibli Nomani, Abul Kalam Azad. Different minds, different schools, but one mission: to preserve Islam in India. Each of them contributed to the fabric of Indian Islam. Deoband revived the spirit of fiqh and sunnah. Bareilly revived the love for the Prophet and the beauty of devotion. Lucknow became a cradle for poetry, literature, and scholarship. And together, they ensured that even when political empires fell, the empire of knowledge stood tall. They established madrasas, publishing houses, and institutions of dawah. The pen replaced the sword. And through that pen, Islam continued to breathe in every corner of the subcontinent. One of the greatest miracles of Indian Islam, my brothers and sisters, is this. Even after centuries of invasion, colonization, and division, the knowledge of deen remained alive, because these scholars refused to let ignorance win. But the secret of their success wasn't just intellect. It was ikhlas, sincerity. They didn't write for money. They didn't teach for fame. They taught because they feared the day when Allah would ask, "What did you do with the knowledge I gave you?" Their tears in the night gave strength to their words in the day, and their legacy became a bridge, connecting the spiritual heart of the Sufis with the intellectual mind of the scholars. This balance is what made Indian Islam powerful. Not just emotion, not just logic, but a harmony of both heart and mind united for Allah. And as we reflect today, we must ask ourselves, where are the scholars of our age? Where are the students who seek knowledge not for likes, but for Allah? The Ummah doesn't just need eloquence, it needs depth. We don't just need followers, we need thinkers. If the scholars of Hind preserved Islam under the shadow of colonization, what excuse do we have in the age of freedom and technology? Their ink became our inheritance. Our duty now is to keep that ink flowing. Allah will raise those who have believed among you and those who were given knowledge by degrees. Quran 58:11. So, to the seekers of today, study, but purify your intention. Teach, but live what you preach. Debate less, understand more. Because every letter you learn for Allah's sake becomes a light in this world and the next. And now, as we move to the next chapter, we'll see how this sacred knowledge, combined with spiritual love, built one of the most unique civilizations in human history, where faith met culture and art met worship. Faith in color and sound. How Islam shaped India's art, architecture, and soul. Every brick tells a story. Every dome whispers a prayer. Every minaret points to the heavens, reminding man of the one who never forgets him. Islam did not just enter India with words. It entered with beauty. The beauty of faith reflected in art, architecture, calligraphy, and poetry. Because for Muslims, beauty is not decoration, it is devotion. From the grand cut minar in Delhi to the shimmering Taj Mahal of Agra, from the mosques of Ahmedabad to the tombs of Golconda, the spirit of Islam carved itself into the very stones of India. But this beauty was not born of vanity. It was born of remembrance. For every curve of an arch, every mosaic pattern, every carved verse from the Quran was an artist saying, Ya Allah, I see you in symmetry. I glorify you through structure. The Sultans of Hind understood something profound. That art is not to compete with Allah's creation, but to celebrate his perfection. So they built gardens like paradise on earth. The Shalimar Bagh of Kashmir, the Charbagh of Agra, designed not for luxury, but as a reminder of the Jannah that awaits the believers. Water flowed through fountains as symbols of mercy. Trees stood as symbols of life. And symmetry represented balance, the divine order of creation. And then came the music of the heart. Qawwali, born in the khanqahs of Delhi and Ajmer. It was not mere song, but zikr and melody. When Amir Khusro, the beloved disciple of Khwaja Moinuddin Chishti, composed his verses, he wasn't entertaining, he was worshipping. His words still echo through centuries. If there's a paradise on earth, it is here, it is here, it is here. Khusro fused Persian passion with Indian rhythm, creating an art form that spoke to kings and beggars alike. Through Qawwali, the message of Ishq-i-Hakiki, divine love, reached hearts that logic could not touch. The Sufi poets of Hind, Rumi's echoes found new tongues. Bulleh Shah, Khwaja Banda Nawaz, Hazrat Shah Latif, and Allama Iqbal, who later turned their verses into movements of awakening. They taught that Allah's love could be felt in every act, that the divine is not distant, but present in every sincere breath. While the scholars preserve the knowledge, the artists preserve the feeling. Together, they built a civilization where reason and beauty walked hand in hand. And perhaps this was the secret of Indian Islam. It did not erase, it embraced. It did not destroy culture, it purified it. It took the color of India and painted over it the light of Tawheed. That's why you see the verses of the Quran carved on red sandstone. Why marble walls hold poetry in Persian, Urdu, and Arabic. Why calligraphy replaced idols, and beauty replaced arrogance. Every artist became a servant. Every architect became a worshiper, and every craftsman built, not for kings, but for Allah. The Taj Mahal, yes, people call it a symbol of love, but for the believer, it's a reminder that even kings can build monuments. But only Allah builds eternity. Those who truly see with the eye of faith understand. The domes, the arches, the calligraphy, the gardens, they're all signs. guiding hearts from creation to the Creator. So when you walk through an old Mughal mosque, or hear the Adhan echo across an Indian valley, know this: you are walking through centuries of Aman, art, and sacrifice. For every color, every melody, every verse is a witness to the truth that, verily, Allah is beautiful, and He loves beauty. Hadith Sahih Muslim. And that, my dear brothers and sisters, is how Indian Islam turned faith into art, and art into worship, the decline and the revival. What modern Muslims can learn from the golden age of Indian Islam. Every rise has its fall, and every light, if not protected, flickers before it fades. The story of Indian Islam, rich, glorious, spiritual, did not end in the brilliance of Mughal courts or Sufi lodges. It continued into a time of tests and trials, where the Ummah was challenged by power, politics, and pride. For centuries, Islam in India stood as a pillar of learning, tolerance, and art. But then, as history turned its page, darkness crept in. The Mughal Empire began to weaken. Brother fought brother for thrones built on dust. And while the palaces grew taller, the taqwa grew thinner. The British colonial shadow fell upon the land. And slowly, the pen of the scholar was replaced by the sword of the occupier. Madrasas were shut down, scholars imprisoned, and mosques stripped of their power. The Ummah that once taught the world began to forget itself. And like a tree whose roots are cut, the civilization began to wither. But even in that darkness, Allah left light. The light of men who refused to bow. Men like Shah Waliullah Dehlawi, who reignited the love for Quran and Sunnah. Men like Sir Syed Ahmad Khan, who sought to rebuild Muslim education. And Maulana Abul Kalam Azad, who gave voice to unity in a divided land. They understood the true revival of Islam begins not with the sword, but with knowledge, discipline, and faith. My dear brothers and sisters, the fall of Indian Islam was not the fault of outsiders alone. It began when we turned away from the very values that made us great. When the Quran became decoration, not direction. When our mosques echoed with ritual, but not reflection. When unity gave way to ego. And leadership became about titles, not taqwa. But history is not just meant to be remembered. It is meant to be revived. And today, the story of Indian Islam is calling out again. Calling us to rebuild, to reawaken, to return to the roots of revelation. Look at the youth of today, scrolling endlessly, searching for meaning in a world of noise. Yet the answers they seek are hidden in the same Quran that once inspired empires. If our forefathers built domes that touch the sky, let us build hearts that touch the throne of Allah. Let us bring back the spirit of the scholars, who studied not for fame, but for faith. Let us revive the humility of the Sufis, who purified their hearts, not their images. Let us reclaim the discipline of the jurists, who upheld justice even when it cost them their comfort. And let us remember the lesson of Bilal, of Khusro, of Aurangzeb, of Waliullah, that the greatest victory is not political or cultural, but spiritual, because when a Muslim heart wakes up, even 1,000 years of decline can be reversed in a single generation. And perhaps, my brothers and sisters, that generation is us. The revival of Indian Islam is not a museum dream. It is a mission to rebuild our Aman, our Adab, and our ILM. To teach our children not just to memorize the Quran, but to live it, not just to visit the masjid, but to be the masjid. So rise again, O Ummah of India, not for kings, not for crowns, but for the one who said, indeed, Allah will not change the condition of a people until they change what is within themselves. Quran 13:11. Our ancestors gave us a legacy of poetry, of scholarship, of worship, and of courage. Do not let that light die in your time. Pick up the Quran, pick up the knowledge, pick up the purpose, and let the world see once again that Islam in India is not a story of the past, but a revival of the present. This is wisdom from the Minbar, where we remember our past to rebuild our future. Subscribe, share, and let your voice carry this revival forward. Because the Minbar belongs to all who still believe in the light of truth, reviving the flame. What today's Muslims must learn from India's past. When the light of history fades, the wise do not mourn. They rekindle it. And today, my brothers and sisters, as we walk through the ruins of forts and forgotten madrasas, we must ask ourselves one question. What happened to us? How did a people who once enlightened the world become shadows of their own legacy? The answer, my dear listeners, is not found in palaces or politics. It lies within us, within the heart of every Muslim who has forgotten that Islam was never inherited. It was earned. Islam in India was not just built by rulers. It was built by seekers, by men and women who woke up before dawn, who taught the Quran under trees, who wrote books by candlelight, and who traveled from city to city spreading light, not titles. They lived simple but died remembered, because their goal was not fame, it was faith. Today, the Ummah of India, and indeed the Ummah of the world, stands again at the crossroad of history. We have mosques, but fewer hearts that cry in them. We have madrasas, but less sincerity in learning. We have followers, but few leaders of taqwa. If our ancestors built cities, we must now build souls. If they carved Quranic verses into stone, we must carve them into our hearts. Because the future of Islam will not be revived through marble, but through morality. Not through culture, but through character. Not through nostalgia, but through knowledge. Let us learn from our past. The unity that built Delhi and the humility that sustained Ajmer. When the scholars debated, they did it with respect. When the Sufis preached, they did it with mercy. When the rulers ruled, they did it with justice. Where are these values today? Where is the adab of disagreement? The tawakkul in hardship, the ikhlas in worship, and the ilm that leads to action? If we wish to revive Indian Islam, we must start not in government halls, but in the hearts of our homes. Teach your children not just to recite the Quran, but to reflect on it. Tell them of the Sufis who walked barefoot to teach compassion. Tell them of the scholars who spoke truth to tyrants. Tell them that Islam is not history, it is destiny. Let them grow up not chasing status, but chasing service. For every youth who finds purpose in prayer, for every woman who finds strength in hijab, for every man who finds humility in zakah, the legacy of Indian Islam lives again. Remember, our forefathers did not wait for ideal times. They built faith in times of chaos. They preached truth under persecution, and they sacrificed comfort for conviction. If they could rise from the sands of ignorance to the heights of civilization, then what excuse do we have in this age of knowledge and ease not to follow their path? Perhaps Allah is waiting for a new generation of believers, a generation that will revive what was lost, restore what was broken, and remind the world once again that La ilaha illa Allah is not just a statement, it's a civilization. You and I, my dear brothers and sisters, are heirs of that flame. And the only question history will ask is, do we keep it burning? So rise again, O Ummah of Hind. Rise from the ashes of division. Rise from the illusion of status. Rise with your Quran in one hand and your character in the other. And let the world see again what it means to be a Muslim, not in name, but in essence. Let the call of faith echo once more through the valleys of Kashmir, the streets of Lucknow, the shores of Kerala. Let the mosques fill again with hearts, not just bodies. Let the scholars speak with truth, not fear. Let the youth dream of Ummah, not influencers. Because revival is not in words. It is in work. It is in worship. It is in walking the path of those before us. This is wisdom from a minbar, where the past guides the present and the light never dies. If this touched your heart, share it. Let others hear the call. Subscribe, and together, let's keep the flame of faith alive. Centuries have passed. Empires have risen and fallen. But the call of Islam in India still echoes through its mosques, its madrasas, its poets, and its people. The world may forget, But Allah does not forget the hearts that carried his message. The footsteps of the Aliyah still whisper through the stones of Ajmer and Delhi. The ink of the scholars still stains the pages of history, proof that knowledge outlives kings. Today, we stand at a crossroads. We scroll more than we study. We debate more than we reflect. We celebrate identity, but forget legacy. If you truly love Islam, then remember those who lived for it, not just those who fought for it. Remember the scholars, the Sufis, the seekers, and the teachers who gave light to the darkness of ignorance. India once showed the world that Islam is not just a religion of law. It is a religion of love, a faith that doesn't conquer lands, it conquers hearts. So my dear brothers and sisters, as we close this journey, don't let it end here. Let it awaken something in you, a desire to learn, to teach, to live Islam beautifully once more. And if this story touched your heart, don't keep it to yourself. Share this message, comment your reflections below, and subscribe to Wisdom from Minbar, where we revive forgotten truths, one story at a time. Until next time, may Allah make us the torchbearers of our forefathers' light. May He forgive our forgetfulness and revive our hearts with faith. And may the echo of La ilaha illa Allah continue to rise, from the deserts of Arabia to the soul of India. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.